I do a lot of work around the world in character education, and there's one theme that comes up again and again and again. It's that people think that the first place to go to impact the development of character in youth, or anyone else for that matter, is to implement curricula, lessons, packaged and structured programs. And while those are all good, that's not really where the main action is. Character education is about the holistic development of youth, and therefore it has to be about the holistic change of schools. It has to be comprehensive, and it has to really be in all facets of school life. So when we think about character education, we can't just think about, can we put it in as a set of lessons in a particular class or an after-school program or some other standalone project, but it has to really be transformation of the adult culture of the school, the whole climate of the school, the role modeling of people in the school, the network of relationships amongst all stakeholders in the school. And oftentimes we forget some of them, like the non-professional staff, or parents, or maybe local community members that have a vested interest in the school. There has to be relationships amongst all of them. So as we go about trying to do comprehensive school-based character education, we need to think about, is it really a priority? Because you can't transform a whole school unless it's truly an authentic priority of the school to focus on the development of character of the students in that school. And then we have to strategically and intentionally build relationships amongst all the stakeholder groups. Because very often we assume that nice relationships will form, and they will for most people, but not for those who need it most. So we need to be intentional, structural, strategic in creating the ways and places and opportunities for relationships to develop. And then we have to move towards trying to get those virtues and values and character strengths to move from the posters on our walls in the school and the rhetoric that we use to live inside the students. They have to become those character traits. We can't just have kids graduate from a school who can wax poetic and talk about character and define it and argue for it and make wonderful essays about it, but who don't really care about it and embody it. So the question becomes, how do we then change our pedagogy so it's one of intrinsic motivation and not relying on extrinsic motivators, which we know reduce the internalization of virtues and character strengths. And then we have to be the character we want to see in the students. We all have to model it around them. There's a famous paraphrase of Ralph Waldo Emerson that goes something like, "Your actions speak so loudly that I cannot hear a word that you're saying." Being the character is one of the most important elements in impacting the character in youth. And then we have to realize that every human being has a fundamental need for autonomy, for a voice, for a sense of control over their own lives. Schools tend to be very disempowering and hierarchical and authoritarian, benevolently so, but unless we can flatten some of those governance structures, we can't really fundamentally create autonomy and hence character in youth. We have to honor their voice and give them more voice. And lastly, we have to understand that the process of character development is really one of long-term development. It's not just a behavior change now or learning some facts now, but it's the kind of person that our students will be for the rest of their lives. And the pedagogy of development and developmental impact is often different than the pedagogy of control or of learning or of behavior change. Now, if we take those 6 ideas I just gave and take the first letter of them, prioritization, relationships, intrinsic motivation, modeling, empowerment, and development, they're a model that we use now called PRIMED to remind people of these 6 design principles of effective, comprehensive, character-based school reform.